Hi, my name is Miss Rizzo. This will be a student-facing video in which I will teach you an adapted version of Passport to Social Studies, Grade 8, Unit 4, Day 3, the United States entry into World War I. Focus question, and this is the same focus question as was included in the original lesson. What caused the United States to enter World War I? Next gen standard that I believe was addressed. RH7. Integrate and evaluate multiple sources of information presented in diverse formats and media in order to address a question or solve a problem. The DLM essential element. Analyze information presented in different media on related topics to answer questions or solve problems. These are both 11th through 12th grade standards. The lesson objective: analyze primary sources to identify factors that led the United States into World War I and evaluate Americans' reactions to entering the war. Introduction model included from the original lesson. Today, we are going to discuss the United States entry into World War I. We are going to examine evidence and events that contributed to the decision to join the Allied powers in August 1918 in World War I. The Constitution of the United States, Article 1, Section 8, gives Congress the power to declare war and raise and support the armed forces. There were many opinions and arguments that were presented on both sides before the United States declared war. So I would recommend that you pause on this slide to take a class vote and tally results for each survey question below. So, when should a country go to war? Number one, when an ally is attacked by another country. Do you agree or disagree? Number two, when a threatening message is intercepted between two potential enemies. Agree or disagree? Three, when a country insults your leadership and your way of life. Agree or disagree? Four, when a country has natural resources needed or wanted by another country. Agree or disagree? When an unfriendly country allegedly possesses weapons of mass destruction. Agree or disagree? Six, when a terrorist organization from another country attacks your country. Agree or disagree? And finally, when citizens from a country are killed in an act of war between two other countries. Agree or disagree? So, the United States was neutral at the beginning of World War I. What does neutral mean? A, on both sides at the same time. B, not on either side. C, on the winning side. So, neutral means B, not on either side. Steps to a war. In May 1914, the sinking of the Lusitania, Germany, engaging in unrestricted submarine warfare, sank the British passenger ship Lusitania. A surge of anger against the Germans erupted in the US when it was learned that 128 Americans were killed in the attack. So, how do you think Americans felt after the sinking of the Lusitania? A, happy, B, hopeful, or C, angry? So, if you refer back to the headline, it says a surge of anger against the Germans erupted in the US. So that means that C, they were angry. Based on the headline, why would Germany be jubilant about the Lusitania tragedy? A, because Germany was fighting with Great Britain and the Lusitania was a British ship. B, because they hated all passenger ships. Or C, because they wanted to sink an Italian ship. So, first of all, it is important to know, to understand this question, that the word jubilant means extremely happy. So, remember, Germany was fighting with Great Britain. So, the answer would be A, because Germany was fighting with Great Britain and the Lusitania was a British ship. B, because they hated all passenger ships, does not really make sense. And C is not accurate because the Lusitania was not, in fact, an Italian ship. If you were an American citizen at the time, how would you want America to react? A, to insist on a peaceful resolution despite this tragedy. B, to ignore it. Or C, to go to war with Germany. This question is an opinion, so I would definitely recommend that you just pause here and discuss with your classmates. So, another step to war. In March of 1917, the Zimmermann telegram, a note was intercepted by British intelligence and relayed to officials in the United States. Germany's offer to support Mexico joined the Central Powers in the war, suggesting an invasion of the United States. So, how do you think Americans might have felt about the Zimmermann telegram? Remember, Germany was urging Mexico to invade or attack the United States. So, do you think the United States would be A, happy, B, hopeful, or C, angry? Well, obviously, the only answer that really makes sense here would be C, angry. What did Germany offer Mexico? A symbolic statue, B, a stockpile of gold, or C, support if they entered the war effort on the side of the Central Powers and attacked America. So there was no mention of a symbolic statue. There was no mention of B, a stockpile of gold. So the correct answer here is C, support if they entered the war effort on the side of the Central Powers and attacked America. So, if you lived during that time, how would you want America to respond to the Zimmermann telegram? A, to insist on a peaceful resolution despite this outreach to Mexico. B, to ignore it. Or C, to go to war with Germany. This is another opinion question, so I would definitely pause here and discuss your opinions with your classmates. So, President Wilson's call for war. On April 2nd, 1917, President Woodrow Wilson called for a declaration of war against Germany. We enter this war only where we are clearly forced into it because there are no other means of defending our rights. It is a fearful thing to lead this great peaceful people into war, into the most terrible and disastrous of all wars. We shall fight for the things which we have always carried nearest our heart, for democracy, for the right of those who submit to authority to have a voice in their own governments, for the rights and liberties of small nations, for peace and safety to all nations, and to make the world itself at last free. To such a task, we can dedicate our lives and our fortunes. So, why did President Wilson stress the need to enter the war? A, to defend American rights, such as freedom and democracy. B, because he liked war, or C, because he had always hated Germany. So if you paid attention to what was said there, he really did not want to enter the war. He felt like his hand was forced. So the only answer that really makes sense here would be A, to defend American rights such as freedom and democracy. Here is an opposition to the war, and both of these opinions were included in the original lesson as well. They have always taught and trained you to believe it to be your patriotic duty to go to war and to have yourself slaughtered at their command. But in all the history of the world, you, the people, have never had a voice in declaring war. And strange as it certainly appears, no war by any nation in any age has ever been declared by the people. And here let me emphasize the fact, and it cannot be repeated too often, that the working class who fought all the battles, the working class who make the supreme sacrifices, the working class who freely shed their blood and furnish the corpses have never yet had a voice in either declaring war or making peace. It is the ruling class that invariably does both. They alone declare war and they alone make peace. Eugene V. Debs, Union leader and socialist candidate. So, why did Eugene V. Debs oppose the war? A, because he had always loved Germany. B, because he believed that working class people had no say in any declaration of war but sacrificed the most in war and often lost their lives. Or C, because he thought the ruling class was very moral. So if you have trouble with this, I would go back to what he said, the previous slide, and you see a lot of evidence of B, because he believed that working class people had no say in any declaration of war, but sacrificed the most in war and often lost their lives. So I would pause on this slide and discuss. Based on what you have learned in this lesson, would you agree or disagree with the United States entering World War I? Explain why.